Hello, everyone. So I have Win with me today. Very excited to have her on board. She is a podcasting champion. She has over 1,500 episodes that are out there, which blows my mind. I hope to get there one day. And today we're going to go a bit into how she got there and what her journey was and her process, because I'm sure there were struggles in there. It can't have been easy the whole time. And we're going to hear a bit about that and where she's going from here and any tips or tricks for people looking to get into the podcasting world. Then last but not least, Wynn's going to ask me a question. So stay tuned. We'll see what she asks. So turning it over to you, Wynn, tell us a bit about your podcasting experience.
Well, thank you, Megan, for having me on. Let's get the elephant out of the room first before anyone asks me questions. Okay, I have a physical disability, mind you, but that hasn't stopped me for podcasting purposes. It doesn't really stop me in life anyway. My physical disability is ataxia spastic cerebral palsy. CP is a lack of oxygen injury at birth on 27 weeks, 13 inches long, fit in the palm of your hand. So, hence, fast forward, you would think that, okay, she has CP, now what? So, fast forward, I didn't learn how to speak until the age of 3. I was out of state I went to UVA, which is University of Virginia, to learn how to speak, which with one of the top speech pathologists in the country. And by that time, I said nothing on the plane ride out. By the plane ride back to Colorado, they couldn't shut me up. My fans couldn't shut me up. So something in that intensive week worked. And they call an intensive week Susan Evans for I'm going to give her a huge shout out. She's semi-retired now. But during that intensive week, it's OT, PT, speech. So let me break it down for you. OT is occupational therapy, fine motor skills. PT is gross motor skills. PT is something you do when you break a leg or after major surgery. Speech is when you have, let's say your family member had a stroke. Well, a speech pathologist comes in, they try and get their speech back to not necessarily where it was, but back to where humans can understand it. And so when you are in a intensive program, they do all 6 days a week.
Okay.
And so OT, PT, speech, 6 days a week, working fine motor skills, gross motor skills, and then speech. So fast forward again. My mom dies, literally. And I am watching her die in the ICU. And so basically, I come up with the idea of, okay, she's a champion of me. Now, losing my mom, I need to do something for myself. And I need to spread awareness about cerebral palsy. Well, unfortunately, this is cool. Unfortunately, when I told my BFF, my best friend for 20 years, that I have a project, that I have idea for a project, and unfortunately, we didn't know that it was going to turn into my full-time job. And unfortunately, now I'm looking at office spaces here in Phoenix, Arizona, co-working spaces, because I need to step it up. I need to quit working from my kitchen table for many reasons. And so I am looking at office spaces. And so when I started my podcast, I was in the middle of grieving the loss of my mom. And then fast forward again, I lost my dad in 2019. And then in the middle of losing my mom, I decided to write a book. So my favorite color is purple, and you'll see why there's a connection to my favorite color. On the iPhone, there's a big purple button, and I'm always curious, especially if buttons are purple, what they do. And at the time, it was called iTunes, and now it's called Apple Podcast. So I wanted to make that little purple button dance. And at the time, I thought, okay, I'm going to write a book about
Bless you.
my journey. Excuse me. My journey with cerebral palsy. And I'm like, how the heck am I going to write this book? So because I'm an audio learner, I turned to podcasting, and I turned to Miss Joanna Penn. Joanna Penn, of the Creative Penn, is one of the top self-published authors out of the UK.
Okay.
And so I used her knowledge to write my book, my original book. And then when she got to the book, okay, now you need to market book, because it's not a you write it, they will come situation. You need to market book. And I'm like, how in the heck do I market the book? And so I make that little search button, that little magnifying glass within the purple button,
Yes.
dance again, within iTunes, dance again, and I type in cerebral palsy. I'm not kidding. When I say let's make it, nothing came up. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. So what do I do? I'm thinking, ding, that's how I'm going to market the book and raise awareness about disabilities at the same time. So that's how I started my podcast. All because I wanted to write a book. And all because my mom died and I needed to get my story out there. And then I lost my dad in 2019, and then I moved, and I'm looking for a part-time job just to make a little bit more income, so it will feed back into my lifestyle, feed back into supporting podcasts, because as you know, Megan, in a podcast isn't easy, and you're on a free program called Podcast AI, and that's how we met. And so, but finding guests and doing all that and doing everything else is not easy, being a one-woman show. And very few women are in the podcasting space. It's a man-dominated space, and it's a man-dominated space, and very few women with a physical disability are in the space. So I say as a joke all the time, I'm a woman, I'm gay, I'm disabled. Which do you want to have a fight with today?
Or a conversation about
Or
today.
a conversation with, which I will use that tagline. Which one do you want to have a conversation with? The disabilities, or the women in general, or the gay? Which one do you want to have a conversation with?
I love that.
So and people laugh at me all the time when I say I'm a woman, I'm gay, and I have a disability. But those three things don't stop me. I show up to networking meetings when I can. I do a podcast when I can. Right now, I'm on a little bit of hiatus because I'm switching podcast software, and then I'm ramping things back up. I'm actually having a little bit of more of a health challenge than expected. I'm waiting, and that's the God of the truth, you guys. You guys get to spill the tea out of me of why I haven't necessarily started the podcast up again. I'm waiting for knee surgery, and I need to wait for that to fully be back on my game.
And tell us a bit about your process, the starting the podcast, like the technical side of it. Because I know there's a lot involved and you can't always do it halfway.
Okay, I'm lucky because I have an assistant
Okay.
that does all the back end scheduling. She loves me because she happens to be my BFF in
Nice.
real life for 20 some odd years. And so when we started this little project that I call it the green monster that I can't control. The reason why I call it the green monster is because cerebral palsy's national color is green. So it's a very friendly green monster that now I can't control. It's like unbelievable how it went fast and furious. And so it's very unbelievable to me that people want to be educated about cerebral palsy. And so it is the technical process. She helps me organize a guest. I find them a pod match. I send them to her. I do it all myself, but she's the one that we have a system. I have a note on my phone. It says, if you want an interview, click here. If you want to schedule the podcast directly, click here. If you want to contact Danielle, click here. And what I basically do is use Calendly. And so people have the choice of using Calendly and clicking a date, whether they want a pre-call with me or whether they want a podcast directly. And so, but it doesn't do what podcast AI does. It doesn't automatically fill, populate with guests. But yeah, so that's the only reason why I can only have a part-time job, because this is my other part-time job. And yeah, so that's how I do it.
How do you find guests to come on your show and what do you normally speak about?
I find them through Podmatch. Just say, do you want to come on my podcast? And they look in my profile and it's a yes or no. Or I find them through Instagram, or I find them through Facebook, or I find them locally here. It's so funny because my lawyer, who I'm working with now, she's like, when are we doing a podcast on estate planning for disabilities? That was her idea, not mine. And I'm like, okay, let me get over my knee surgery first, and then I'll be back. And no, but I've done podcasts in rehab centers. I'm quite friendly. And how I do it is on my phone and or on my iPad, depending on what I have with me. So yeah,
And do you have a recording studio?
I do not. I do not. I have my kitchen table, my kitchen, and I have my iPad, and I just set it up and naturally, and I don't have a recording studio. Recording. I would have office space if I rented office space where I could get access to a recording studio as part of my office space membership. That would be cool. they sold me on that one. But I'm just going to do it out of my office when I get the ability to afford an office. And so, yeah.
But it's kind of cool for people to also know that you don't need all the fancy things to start a
No,
podcast.
you don't need all the fancy things. No, I just do it via my iPad and do it out of my kitchen.
Yeah. And what are your followers up to at the moment, out of curiosity?
My follows are probably up to 1,000. It varies depending on the subject matter. It varies depending on whether I'm on a person's podcast or whether they want to follow me or whether it varies, and then whether I produce content and really begun taking a medical hiatus right now, and I'm also looking for a job, a part-time job, as I said. And so it will be interesting, but it varies.
That's pretty fun. So where do you want to go from here? You say you were starting a new podcast potentially?
Now I'm looking for a part-time job to feed my passion for podcasting. No new podcast for me. New podcast would be way too difficult.
And what's your podcast called?
Win in life. Win at life. WIN at life.
I love it. And what's your tagline?
I don't really have a tagline because I promote, not only do I promote cerebral palsy, I promote any disability that I see fit. One thing I will tell you is I got diagnosed with anxiety and depression back in July. So yeah, that was a fun one how I found out about that one. But I'll give you the short version. I wake up from a 5.5 hour back surgery on April 23rd. I knew something was wrong in my soul, other than my back, obviously. And I burst into tears after, this is public knowledge, so this is not private knowledge. But I burst into tears after the head nurse proceeds to tell me, you got a phone call from the Bahamas. Well, the Bahamas is where my mom's family lives, and they were calling to check in on me. They went on my hit list, mind you, and so they were calling to check in on me. The nurse says it so unsweetly that I start to cry. I have my leg up in the air. I'm in a back place under you. I have tubes coming out to the side of me, draining all this blood out of my back. So I start to cry. And she tells me, and I quote, shut up, you're scaring the other patients. Well, unbeknownst to me, I had 40 other patients in Auckland to recovery with me. And there was me, bed, bed, bed. And I looked across the hall, and the little that I could look. I looked across the hallway, and it's bed, 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 all backed up. And I had a friend come in from my church, and this friend who knows my baseline, she's seen me talking in Nemo in a way. I always talk in Nemo way. And she knows I'm in a wheelchair. And she was doing what they call pastoral care with me. Long story how I got her to do that. But she did it. And she goes, well, you didn't know this, but I took everything in. You had 40 other patients recovering. And the nurse tells you to shut up because, and of course, CP is splashed all over my medical paperwork. 5 hour back surgery, and then they tell me to be quiet. I'm like, no, thank you. No, thank you, because I just had a 5 hour back surgery. So I knew something was wrong with my mental state because I I knew once I woke up from back surgery that something was wrong with my mental state. So when I got home, I called a friend of mine that happened to be a registered nurse. I said, something is wrong here. I I think it's anxiety and depression. And I was supposed to be diagnosed with depression back in 2010 when I lost my mom. Of course, when you lose your primary caregiver and you're trapped in a body that doesn't look right, thank you very much, CP. Of course you're going to get depression, and of course you're going to get anxiety, too. And so if you guys Google it, it's a classic symptom of CP. I just didn't get diagnosed with it until 2024 because my dad didn't believe in psychological help.
That's tough.
And so, yeah. And so I got it really suddenly had after my back surgery and I fixed it. And I am on antidepressants every single day. And so forth. They're working. And I will be an open book about it because I want to break the stigma about hidden disabilities too.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And I think
And when I tell people this, they're like, what? You of all people, you have the most triple personality. And those who've been around me long enough know that I have the most triple personality before my mom died. And was a little bit grumpy when my dad was alive. But that's because he had anger management issues that were passed on to me. So, yeah. So that's my story. I'm sticking to it.
that's quite the story. And I love that you're so it so openly with everyone. Because like you
Yeah.
said, it's a stigma and people need to hear about it. And it
Yeah.
makes it
And
more.
people need to go get help instead of doing something stupid.
Yeah, exactly.
When I say stupid, I mean the S word. All the S word does is takes away the pain, but it leaves you with your loved ones thinking, how could we help this person? And if you look at the Robin Williams history, he did the S word, and then his friends and family looked at themselves and think, well, how could we help him?
Yep. And do you find that podcasting helps you in that journey?
Yes, I also go to a free mental health group. I also see a therapist once a week, a mental health counselor once a week. So, but podcasting helps me in that journey.
And how does it help you? What
It just helps me in that journey because I am focused on other people, focused on their story. I may relate to their story.
That's awesome. And for anyone who's looking to get podcasting, do you have any tips or tricks for them in their journey?
Decide your niche, whatever they call it, and decide whether you're going to do a solo show, decide whether you're going to do an interview show, and stay with your niche and stay with your pick one podcasting host and stay with it. And then there's some good ones out there. Podcast AI is wonderful, and Buzzsprout is wonderful, and everything else is wonderful. Lipson, Buzzsprout, Podcast AI, Podbean, you name it, it's out there. But you have to look again. It's not a build it, they will come situation. You have to be able to put yourself, commit to sitting down and putting a do not disturb when the kids are running around and say, look, mommy's doing podcasting for 1 hour. Mommy's doing podcasting for 2 hours and I'll do it when the kids go to sleep. Yeah.
Those are good tips.
So just make time in your day to do it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that sometimes, especially if you have a different, that's sometimes the hardest part is creating time for this and then the putting it out and scheduling it, going out and creating
But people know, and you don't need to get an editor. You don't need to pay an editor. People know that I have CP, and people know, and I'm truly honest with my fans. They don't know that I'm having knee surgery yet, but they will figure out next month when I publish the episodes about knee surgery. And you could even record it on your phone. Apple technology has now gotten to the point where you hit, as long as you say this podcast is being recorded on the phone, as long as you say that, you can easily hit the button and it will say this call is being recorded.
That's pretty cool. I like. And Win, is there anything else before you ask me a question? Is there anything?
People could contact me if they want to get involved in my podcasting coaching services and help them set up podcasts. And I know the ropes. I know a couple people that can help. I know the leader of Podcast AI too, personally. And I know the leader of Podmatch too, personally. And I know a couple people that could help them along the way. And I'm not the only one that could help. If you want a person with a disability and you have a disability and understand the struggles of a disability, look me up. Find me. winitlife.weebelieve.com. It's just Google Win It Life or Win WIN Charles.
Amazing. And what question do you have for me today, Win?
Let's see. What question do I? Megan, you put me on the spot.
What's the point of it?
Last time.
I put you on the spot.
Did you ever think when you started with Podcast AI, did you ever think that and I was going to stick with this project and it was going to make me money?
Oh, definitely podcast launch, AI, and podcasting in general. For me, it's been partly about money because, as we both know, there's always the long game of podcasting and the short game of podcasting. For those that don't know about this, the short game of podcasting is you get to know the person you're doing a podcast with and you form a relationship, and then potentially you can do something on the business level using that relationship and that trust that you formed to whatever you do. It could be business coaching, it could be anything. So it's a way to form the relationship. And then the long game for us is around getting social media content out. And it's a podcast. You can go on YouTube, you can go on Instagram, we can make shorts out of this. So for me, like, yes, making money from the podcast, but I love how far reaching it is. I love that it's like money may not come directly from the podcast, but in so many different, like building a social media presence and building those relationships with people that you have on your podcast. For me, it's all a learning journey. Like maybe one day we'll have advertisers on the podcast and get money from that as well. But that's more of a direct from podcasting getting money revenue. But it's the more people I talk to and the more I learn, like that's it as well. The podcasting gives me people that I learn from every single podcast that I have. And like definitely hope that it leads to money. And it's also just fun being able to talk to really cool people doing really cool things. And at the end of the day, sometimes that's just enough to not be at home alone, as you say, at the kitchen table doing your business. Sometimes it's great to be like, I'm going to go talk to someone really cool for half an hour and hear about their life and journey and story. And
Yeah.
It makes it all worthwhile sometimes.
Yes, it does.
Good question. Any last words before we log off and say so long?
Any last words? Well, now is the right time to start a podcast. Now is the right time to start a podcast. As one of my podcasting heroes said in the podcasting space, and that would be Mr. Dave Jackson of the School of Podcasting. And he always says, now is the right time to start a podcast.
That makes total sense. Why wait till tomorrow when you got today? And you contact Win or I if you're interested in getting started. We can both get to you with some fun resources.
Yep.
Well, thank you very much, Win, and I hope everyone has a great day.
Thank you.